Welcome to the One Berry Lane podcast. This is Matt Jones, Logansport High School principal. This is episode 2, and today we have some special in-office guests. We have Mrs. Jessica Kranz.
Hello.
And her mother, Mrs. Joyce Pazel, and members of the state qualifying speech team. And they've got a big speech tournament coming up this Saturday. And members of the team, we have Luna Tafoya, we have Stephanie Maxson, Danielle Robertson, Mallory Alder, and Luke Fincher. We get started. For Berry speechers out there, or for all alumni, the LHS joined the National Forensic League, the NFL, in 1937. Goes all the way back to 1937. And I would guess that Logansport High School's Forensic League is probably one of the oldest in the state of Indiana. So that's something we can definitely be proud of, as Logansport High School has a lot of wonderful, rich traditions, and program is one of those awesome traditions here at LHS. So, to get started, when did the speech season start for LHS this year? When does it? How does it evolve? How does it begin?
We have auditions in October, and prior to the auditions, the kids are made aware of the fact that speech team exists, and they come to a call-out meeting where we show them our video. We have varsity members talk about all of the fun things that we do with speech and all of the skills that you learn. And then after auditions, we post our team, and we start working pretty concentratedly after Thanksgiving break, so that everybody at that point has their piece in some sort of presentation mode, or they at least know what they're wanting to present in, so that we're ready then to compete in January.
And these are all freshmen through seniors on the team?
Yes.
And
through 12.
How many total speech team members do we have this year, roughly?
I would say roughly 24.
Is that pretty normal?
Mm-hmm. We took 19 kids with us to the sectional, and that was a pretty good turnout as far as our team size goes.
I'm always so impressed with speech kids on the amount of time and preparation it takes to prepare for the tournaments. As I've attended a few on campus over the years, and just watching kids from other schools too, practicing their lines, memorizing, going through, standing in front of a mirror. I guarantee you, many of you guys have spent countless hours standing in front of a mirror practicing your speeches. So hats off to you, because it takes a lot of time and practice and memorization, and I know it takes a lot of concentration.
It's one-on-one, and I think that's the really interesting thing, is that yes, we are a team, but it's one-on-one. You're in your head. You're with yourself when you're doing this practice work. And so you might not be lifting the weights or hitting the gym, but you're definitely using a different sort of practice mode. And I think that sometimes it's harder because you are in your head. You're focusing on what you can do to improve you.
I know a lot of our Berry speechers, they're not only part of the speech program, but they're involved in so many other things at Logansport High School and give back in many other ways. So we appreciate that. So how many coming up with in the tournament? So I always kind of get a little confused with the speech season. Yeah. It gets confused with how speech works with, there's districts, and how's that set up?
Well, this year we did not go to the districts tournament because nationals are being held in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Mm-hmm. And we thought that seemed a little out of our price range and our travel range. So we avoided districts and focused heavily on sectionals. Districts are sanctioned by the National Forensic League, and sectionals and state are sponsored by the Indiana High School Forensic Association. So that's where we kind of focused this year.
Sure.
And so sectionals leads directly to state. And we always tell the kids, Coach Pazel and Coach Dialis and I, we always tell the kids that if you qualify for state, 9 times out of 10, you've worked so incredibly hard, and your tournament at sectionals was harder than your tournament qualifying for the national tournament would be, because our sectional is really loaded with Fishers and Carmel and Westfield and Noblesville, and these teams have been competing since the 1st of October. They have larger schools. They have a more diverse population of numbers to pull from.
More specialization, maybe?
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And so when we don't start competing until January, and we're still able to run our quality kid really big for our kids.
No stress, right? Congratulations on all you've achieved to this point. So how many students will be competing in each event coming up?
I think I remember.
Yes.
All right, so it's for each event, it's the top 48 kids, right? From 5 sectionals across Indiana.
Eight
8 sectionals. Okay. So yeah, 48 kids. Semifinals are 12.
12.
Top 12. Then finals are top 6. Then there's the champion.
So obviously highly competitive.
Yeah.
Very.
The best of the best.
Wow. So which section are we in that we go to?
Section 5.
Sectional 5. And that was hosted at Fisher's, is that right?
It was at Westfield.
Westfield. Okay.
But Fisher's attends.
Fisher. Okay.
Yes. So if it tells you anything, Fisher's took 40 entries to sectionals and qualified 39 of them to state.
Okay.
And so when you take the top 6 in every event that are going to state from each sectional, that tells you just how competitive of a market it was for us to get our 5 kids through and other smaller programs to get their kids through.
So how does the state tournament work? What's this?
So pretty much we have our quarterfinals, which is what our top 24, and is that for every? That's for every category, and you have categories ranging from what I do, which is original oratory, all the way to radio, and there's still some debates with it too, where you get more political. And through the quarterfinals, then you go to semifinals with just the 12, and then you go top 6, and then, like Luke said, you do the champion. And it is very stressful because you have so many kids around you, and you're constantly passing through hallways and seeing people just talking to walls, and you're really stressed a lot of the time, but at the same moment, you're admiring the work that you put into it. And you're saying, wow, I really made it this far to be competing against such great people.
Well, I've always noticed with speech teams on just the camaraderie, the tightness of the group. I mean, these are early mornings, 5 a.m. You get up early and have to get to the speech meets, right? So your guys are a lot of a good quality bonding time together early in the morning. And so those are those memories. Yeah, absolutely.
And
So
I think it's cool. I'm sorry to interrupt.
mhm.
I think it's really cool because we take groups of kids that wouldn't necessarily be friends, maybe in other teams or other clubs, they don't know each other, and they come to speech team, and all of a sudden you have this diverse group of kids that love each other. And that's pretty cool from a coach's perspective to be able to say that these really diverse kids all come together for the common goal. And that's neat.
So tell us a little bit about, people that don't know maybe the ins and outs of speech and what these different categories are. So if each person could explain what your category is and what you have to do to compete. So Luke, why don't you start off?
Yeah, sure. All right, well, I do impromptu and international extemporaneous, but I qualified for state in extemporaneous. And basically what that is, the two events are really similar, but extemporaneous is you get a topic about a specific current event. Like one was, how has Benjamin Netanyahu stayed in power for so long? And I admit that before I got that question, I did not know who Benjamin Netanyahu was.
Do you get the question at the event?
You get the question at the event.
And you don't, no prior knowledge?
No prior knowledge. Well, you get like a genre. It's usually a geographical location like Asia, the Middle East, Australia, something like that. And you get a current event question from that region. And then you have a half hour to use a database that you hopefully update frequently to find articles and stuff. Hey, I still qualify, did I not?
So you're using your laptop to find this information. This is a speech database or just Wikipedia
Yes.
or
We subscribe to it.
okay, it's a subscription. Okay.
Yeah. No internet access allowed. You just have to use what you got. Last year at district competitions, we had a crate with a bunch of Time magazine articles in it.
It's horrible.
Yeah,
It was a little
Wow.
archaic.
it was a little rough. But yeah, you get a half hour to prepare for that. Then you deliver a speech that has a max of 7 minutes. And with impromptu, it's basically the same thing, only you get a more general question and you have like 30 seconds to prepare a speech and you don't have to cite sources or anything. So it's a bit easier in a way, but I mean, each has its easy parts and hard
Right.
parts.
Which is easier, doing that or playing the trumpet?
Well, I mean, for me personally, I dare say playing the trumpet is easier because I'm used to playing the trumpet now, but I've only started competing in speech for like a couple years now, so this is pretty new to me still.
Well, as was theater.
Yeah.
Right? Where you kind of, started getting into the theater program and
Yeah, I was only involved
getting outside your box, huh? A little bit.
A little bit.
Yeah.
And we're glad.
That's great.
That's the whole
It's to
point.
challenge yourselves,
Yeah.
to be well rounded, to really push yourselves.
Mm-hmm.
That's great.
All right, Stephanie.
So I also do extemporaneous, but while Luke does international, I do United States extemporaneous, and that focuses more on the current events around the U.S. And like he said, it's a lot of pressure because you are only given a broad topic. At sectionals, I was only told the general election. So I had a wide range. I was looking at the primaries, what Trump would look at, what everything. And yet I still didn't know what I was doing. So thankfully, though, I did have the Extemp Genie, and I was going through those sources, and I tried finding everything I could. I did fall short with one place to qualify for that with state, but I did qualify for original oratory, which that I have a max of a 10-minute speech that I have to memorize. I write it myself, and through that I find a social issue or a universal theme that I can observe, and through that I give the demonstration and show people and bring attention to the topic. So for this year, I'm talking about why kids grow up so fast, and watching my little sister grow up so fast, it kind of makes me reminisce wanting to be a little kid again. And so that's why I called it Peter Pan, because I still want to be that little kid from Neverland.
Wonderful.
It's great. Thank you. Danielle.
So I just joined the speech team last year, and last year I joined for original performance, which is the category that I also did this year along with duo. Duo is very different and very interesting. I very much enjoyed it, but that's not what I qualified for state for. I qualified for original performance. I also qualified for original performance last year for state, which was really crazy because sectionals was my second meet that I ever went to.
I forgot about that.
Oh, I haven't. I did not forget about that ever. It was terrifying. But original performance, I think, is exceptionally diverse because you have a max of a 10-minute speech like original oratory, and it could be about pretty much anything you want. So a lot of people sometimes they do a short story or a comedy skit sort of deal, and then a lot of people also do something what I do, where I do something with more of a deep meaning. And so like last year I did a collection of letters and memories to my dad who passed away, and then this year my OP focused on like self-hatred. And so I think you really never know what you're going to get when you step into an OP room, which I think is something that's very intriguing about it. And I really liked the fact that you get to write your own piece, and so that's what drew me to that.
Excellent.
I'm Mallory. I do radio and broadcasting, and for
Are you
that-
critiquing me right now?
No. But you have to come up with your own broadcast before the meet, and sometimes you're given limitations to what music and news stories you can put on there, and you come up with your own commercial. You're given a subject, and then you write your own commercial for it, and all of that comes together for your broadcast, and you read out that broadcast on a microphone at the competition, which if you're a person that kind of gets nervous talking in front of other people, this would be the perfect category because you never actually see your judges because they're in a separate room and you just talk in the microphone. And sometimes you'll read through the broadcast, and other times they'll have rounds where you have it on the spot and they'll give you like a subject or maybe just a picture, and you have 2 minutes to think of something to say for 2 minutes. And that usually feels a little impossible. That's always the hardest part. But I think it has helped me to like think on my feet more and prepare for other things I might not be prepared for.
Are you thinking about eventually being in radio or
I've considered it.
media, something?
Yeah.
Okay. You seem pretty comfortable in that
Yes.
role. All right, Luna?
Hi, I'm Luna, and I do informative. And it being my first year as a freshman, I tried discussion as well. I tried United States, U.S. Extempt, and I just kind of did it to see how the events were. Informative is what I qualified for, and they give you a certain amount of time to research whatever topic you want, such as like an event or a person. And I chose Albert Einstein, and it has-
Smart choice.
and
See what I did there?
and it has to be for 10 minutes long.
Mhm.
And you just kind of have to memorize it and perform it in front of the judges. And with it, you have to deliver it. You can't just say it. You have to really watch your body language and make sure that your voice is very comfortable and intriguing to the subject, because you can draw the people away or into it.
Look at you.
Wow.
That's a really good job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've learned a lot since your freshman year, since the
That's
beginning of August. How do you kind of prep for sectional state? Is there any extra prep that you're doing here last minute to get ready for Saturday?
I go ahead.
Well, I mean, my event is a little more on the spot, of course, but I mean, updating the database is a big part of it, and reading up. Like when you're allowed to use the internet, like when you're not at the speech meet, it's a really good idea to like read up on different things. Like there's a lot going on with the coronavirus right
Guess
now.
what they might
Yeah.
throw at you.
Yes.
Like the more you know,
Yeah.
like the more capable you'll be.
Right.
Like I know if I had researched more into like what the economy was doing, I would have done better in my second round, because I was supposed to talk about what Germany can do to like help boost its economy, which has been falling a little bit. And
Who knew?
You didn't learn that in Miss Sharp's class?
I have to say, we haven't gotten there
Oh,
yet.
okay.
We're about the 1800s now, so we got a little ways to go.
Okay, not quite there yet.
So yeah, just research. That's the main thing for me.
For me, it's either going to every speech practice I can and just reciting my speech as best as I can to both Coach Krantz and Coach Pazel. Alongside, you have to do a lot of independent work by yourself, though. Whether it's editing, finding the right words to enunciate at the right time, whether it's just trying to get the entire speech in your head from just going to work and saying it out loud in a empty car by yourself, or just doing it on Friday night right before the speech meet. You kind of just have to understand your strengths of how fast you're going to get that speech memorized and how proficiently you're going to do in that process.
For OP, you don't necessarily have to memorize it. You could have this thing called a black book. It's like a little black binder. But I tend to try at least mostly memorizing my pieces, because it makes it easier that you're not tripping over your words as much. And so of course I practice. You kind of like eat, sleep, and breathe your piece. You want to know your piece as best as you can. And something I tend to do is I grab anybody I think will listen to me, and I will speak to them. I ask for them to hear me, and so that tends to help me as well.
In competitions, I try to look at the competitors, see how they're doing it, and I've seen like the people who have won in my division, how they did it multiple times, and I try to pick up on their habits so I can possibly get there. And you just
She's an observer, a researcher. She's paying attention at all times.
Absolutely.
and then I just practice it, try to memorize it as best as possible and be comfortable with it. I don't know.
Like Danielle and Stephanie and Luna all said, to get familiar with your piece is really important. Because even though I am just reading from it like on a laptop or a piece of paper, it's best like to know it in your head well enough so that you can sometimes go off the paper and say it comfortably and know what words and how to pronounce them a certain way, because I've had some troubles with that. Like I always have to check all my hard words and I'll star them on my paper. And I always have to know how to keep a good pace, not go too fast or too slow, and just have really good inflection the best that I can and try to keep a nice like soothing voice, I guess. But
Good.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, anybody share like how does speech prep you for life after high school? It doesn't have to be everybody, but anybody wants to share their thoughts on that.
Well, I mean, speech can be a microcosm of life in a lot of different ways. I mean, you're going up there and you're speaking in front of, somebody you don't know. And one big part of it is that, you got to be honest. A lot of the times, like sometimes you're tempted in extemp to BS something that you don't really know, like a source or something. Well, I did that once, and it turns out I was talking about China, and I didn't know what I was talking about. So I kind of stretched the truth a little bit, and my judge turned out to be a foreign policy analyst. So I got called on that. So
Fact check.
Yes, lesson learned.
so speech teaches you honesty. I mean, as far as skills go, I mean, the importance of research, of being informed, is a big part of it, and of course, the ability to speak in front of somebody, be it somebody you know or respect or anything, that's a really big thing for job interviews or presentations.
Well, when I was in high school, every kid had to take speech. It was a part of the curriculum. It was mandatory. It was part of graduation. And we still, Mrs. Kranz, I mean, she has a big speech, the ACP or the Ivy Tech class, in communications, which is really important.
Yeah.
Anybody else want to just talk about, about what you're getting from speech? What do you see as prepping yourself post high school?
So it may be hard to believe, but I used to be really shy and quiet. And freshman year, I was still like that. But
I've heard that,
Yes.
and then I'm like, no, not the Stephanie Max. I mean, she seems very pretty. She's outgoing.
And the one thing speech has taught me is that you can always speak your truth. And that was one of our sayings when I believe my sophomore year. And it teaches me that my words matter no matter who I'm talking to or no matter what situation I put in, that every word that I speak, it has some influence on the person I'm speaking
You
to.
misty. Because it's true. I look at how far they come, and it is. It's very true. It's really cool.
So, and then beyond that though, the presentations, now I don't get jitters or I don't start shaking or whatever trying to do a presentation in class or anymore. Trying to go up and doing a PowerPoint or trying to present a big billboard. But like Luke said also, you're preparing for interviews, and I actually changed my career path. I was originally just wanting to be in a cubicle job where I didn't even have to talk to anyone all day. That was my plan.
And that's good for some people.
But I slowly discovered that it wasn't a life that I could do. And although some people can do that, it wasn't what God's plan was for me. So now I've understood that going into marketing, I can talk to people on a regular basis and I can make it my job.
I'm sure that's great. And I'm sure that speech kids that are when they're in other classes and they have to give a presentation, I'm sure teachers are like, are you on the speech team? Because they can probably just tell by the confidence and the way you handle yourselves, no doubt.
Yes.
Anything else you'd like to discuss?
Along with what they were just
Yeah.
saying, what you see here is probably the cream of the crop, and they're speaking from the vantage point that they have been very successful, obviously, or they wouldn't be here today. So Luke has told us that he made a mistake and he has grown from that, and he works harder to be prepared, and Stephanie has outgrown some of her shyness. But there's something, we do have kids that aren't successful, and they come back anyway. And I think it's because we give them a place to belong, and because we keep telling them over and over that, if you are here because you want to be and you want to improve yourself, this is the place to be.
Yes.
You may not be the blue ribbon, you may not be the red ribbon, but because you were persistent and you did not give up, you still have a measure of success over the person that, first of all, didn't learn how to speak, and second of all, the person who gave up
And didn't even get on the bus.
even came. And so we have a whole bunch of kids who are average, who don't get the ribbons that we're talking about here today, but they are acquiring skills that will help them just as much as
Right.
these
It's all about
guys.
growth.
It
Growing
is.
from point A to point B.
It is.
They
And
just
everybody has
cannot-
different types of growth in
Absolutely.
life and different skill
Absolutely.
sets.
And one of the most important things is to learn in life that you may not be the best, but you better know how to be persistent.
Right.
Grit, right?
That's right. Be
Yes.
gritty. Got to be gritty.
Gritty.
Little engine that could.
Yes.
Yeah, and Mrs. Paisel, you've impacted a lot of kids over the years
Oh
as
gosh, I
former
can't count.
U.S.
Yeah.
history teacher at Columbia Middle
Yeah.
School. So I mean, there might be some out there that are watching this that were
We
former
hear
students
about
of,
it. We
of
hear
yours,
about it.
former
And-
Vikings.
In the oddest places, I really, you just sometimes are walking along and you look at somebody and you think, I know that kid. I know
Yeah.
that kid, and they'll say something to you, and you think, yeah, you know, maybe you've impacted them, but they also impacted you, because if I remember your face, that's a big deal.
Oh, I know.
170 kids every year for so many years, you know, you really touch on a lot of them. But yeah, I believe in this. I started as a kid in high school. I drug her into it. I made Jeremy come because I didn't want him to get in any more trouble than he already was. You know, and it goes beyond that. These kids will always be special to us.
That's right.
It's great. Thank you for
true.
that's wonderful. Thank you for being part of the program.
Yes.
I love that you let me. I mean, I love
There's so many other people
Yeah,
banging
that's
down the door, right?
We'll pull the mic up closer there to you, Mrs. Crins. We're going to have what's called rapid fire around here
Oh,
for
gosh.
you, and this is just
risky.
for you. You got that microphone up there?
Oh, I hope so.
Okay,
Oh,
so
gosh.
here we go. This is rapid fire just for your coach. No, you are a huge fan of Harry Potter.
I do love Harry
Okay,
Potter,
I know you're a
yes.
fan. So, favorite Harry Potter movie?
I would say the first one, because that sets the pace for the whole series and it introduces you to what a fantastic world magic can be.
Is that the Sorcerer's Stone?
Yes.
Or the Philosopher's Stone if you're in
Philosopher's
Great
Stone,
Britain?
Yes.
Hermione Granger or
Yes.
Harry Potter?
Hermione Granger.
The Elder Wand, Cloak of Invisibility, or the Resurrection Stone? Which one?
Invisibility cloak.
Okay.
All the way.
House Ravenclaw or Hufflepuff?
Hufflepuff.
See, I didn't give you the softball with Gryffindor.
I know. I can't get on board with Hufflepuff. I just feel kind of like they're so I know I'm going to make enemies, but Ravenclaw.
Okay, Ravenclaw. House
Mhm.
Ravenclaw.
Luke is
Dumbledore or
disappointed.
Snape?
Snape. He's misunderstood.
Okay, that follow the next question. Snape, good or bad?
He's good. I think it's like Elphaba.
Of course he was good.
Wicked, Misunderstood.
You have your mother's eyes. Of course he
That's
was good.
right, of
That's right. All right. Well, thank you for everyone for joining me on the podcast. I wish all the best of luck on Saturday at the state speech meet. Hardware hunting on Saturday.
That's right.
Bring home some trophies. I do want to thank, this being episode 2, and we have a big group here, more than my normal setup, we had to bring in some extra cameras and sound. So I thank Matt Faust, Sr. from the
Thank
Berry
you, Matt.
Broadcast and TV radio class from Mr. Packard's at the Century Career Center for being a part of this and helping us get this all set up for the speech team in this podcast.
Well, thank
All right.
you.
Thank you, guys.
We
All right.
appreciate it. Go
Okay.
Berries.
Yep.